Today, guys, we're going over the 5 best ways to abuse Lilisette in Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. I originally had no intention of making a video like this. I did mention that I used her in Tiamat, and you guys were interested in seeing the Tiamat thing. That's going to be at the end of the video, but today we're going over Lilisette in case you guys got her, because she's pretty easy to get in the grand scheme of things. Maybe you ticketed her or something like that, and you have access to her, or you're still on the fence whether or not you actually want her. We're going over the best ways to abuse and use this character in your team compositions, what she does, what she can do, and all of that other amazing stuff. And I will say that I did undersell her quite a lot in the banner review, and this wasn't entirely on purpose, because I was trying to hold back and try to be as objective as possible, because I'm a Final Fantasy 11 fan. So when I was doing the banner review, I was like, I can't say that she's super amazing. So I was a little bit harder on her than I should have been. But then on top of that, I found a lot of things out about her after we got access to her and started using her, and she got even better than I thought she was before. So this is gonna be that video. It's gonna be that thing right there. And I want to say thank you guys once again for those of you who are choosing to go ahead and support the channel via Patreon or by becoming a YouTube channel member. You guys do make all of the difference in the world as we try to break away from the YouTube as like the only way to make a living on the platform. To be independent just on YouTube is a very helter-skelter thing out there. So anyone who can do that, much appreciated. Allows us to do pretty much whatever we want in the future as that support continues to grow. So let's get into Lilisette here. Let's talk about her really quickly. TLDR, what are the new things that we learned about Lilisette? Well, what are the biggest changes when it comes to looking at Lilisette as a character? Well, we're not going to do a full banner review again, but she has access to these enable skill for 1 use to the caster, right? From Thornstein, she's got 4 of these skills, and then she has access to 2 more from a passive down here. So she's got 6 different ones. She's got, this technique has no blind spots. How about a waltz with me? Get distracted and you'll get hurt. I'll beat you down, as well as energy drain and quick step. Now these say you only have access to them for 1 use, but really how they work is you have access to them until you use them on a turn, which means you can select them more than once during any specific turn, which means that even though you only have 1 turn to use them, you can use them on whatever turn you want. You can actually use them as many times as you want on the turn you actually use them, which allows you to double cast and triple cast some of the same skills. So this is one of the first ways to kind of abuse her in a lot of different ways. You can abuse her based on these skills here. So we have access to, this technique has no blind spots, no real way to abuse that one by multicasting that one. But we have how about a waltz with me? And this one's really interesting because you can kind of use her as your healer now, because how about a waltz with me gives you an HP and MP restoration to your entire party of 30%, and then it gives a Kira MP and HP over time. So you get 5,000 HP per turn for 4 turns and 100 MP per turn for 4 turns on top of that 30%. You can double and triple cast this skill. So you can restore 30%, 60%, or 90% of your entire party's HP and MP in a single turn, and then also on top of that have that 5,000 HP heal per turn and 100 MP heal per turn. So you can just make her your main healer based off of that alone, and you can combo this with other stuff. So she gets not super complicated, but you know, she's very simple and as complicated as you want her to be as a unit. So healer, she can do that. Now we have get distracted and you'll get hurt. This is another thing. She can be a mass limit burst gauge battery for you guys here, because this one does 170% attack and magic buff for 4 turns. Makes your team immune to attack and magic break. But on top of that, it also fills 15 limit burst gauge crystals to your entire party, and you can also use this one as many times as you want. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. So 15, 30, or 45 limit burst gauge crystals in a single turn to your entire party, which is actually pretty insane. And then we have I'll beat you down, which is another one that you can't really abuse there because it's defense and spirit break, break resistance, and 300% high tide. So no real abuse there on that one, but the HP and MP one and the LB fill is insane. Now the other thing that you can abuse with her is actually energy drain here, which is her biggest hitting skill. That's her non-Pyrrhic Cleo's cooldown skill, and it's a 18 times mod with a guaranteed crit hit. It actually goes up to a 30 times mod because of her passive, so it's a 30 times mod with a guaranteed crit hit. This is the equivalent of a 45 times multiplier to a single enemy, and as it's doing the damage, it removes all buffs. So this skill is actually insane for her burst damage, because it allows you to triple cast this skill for using her for damage to just get in there and do insanely high burst damage. That is 45 times mod 3 times to a single enemy. This is absolutely insane. And to top that off, if you are using her as your damage dealer, there's no more worrying about, I want to blow this monster up right now, and then the turn that you set up, you have your imperil set up, you have your defense break set up, all of this stuff is set up ready for you to go, and the boss is like, guess what, you cross the threshold, 80% defense buff. Now you have to dispel the boss, and then you have to re-imperil him, and then re-break his defense, and all this other stuff. Not with this skill. If you're ready to go, you're ready to go. It doesn't matter if they put that defense buff up or not. You're going to remove those buffs and leave all of your debuffs on, all your imperils, all your defense breaks. As you're doing your damage, you're just going to go right through it, cut right through it like mom's spaghetti. It's going to be a good time there. So that is some stuff for you to think about when abusing Lilisette. Now, another thing to abuse with her is her limit burst in conjunction with her unlocked skills. So if you want to fill even more limit burst gauge crystals, you can use the combination of Dancer's Fury with her unlocked skills to fill an insane amount of limit burst crystals to your entire party in the same turn. So her limit burst does some damage, guaranteed crit hit, whatever, and then at the start of your next turn, it's going to autofill your LB gauge by 20 to your entire party. So what you can do is, if you're getting ready, right, maybe in the future when we have characters, Esther's get enhancement, 60 cost limit burst gauge, get in there, use this skill, next turn, auto cast 20 LB gauge crystals set up, and you've prepared for it. You already used Thorn Stance earlier on, and then you can go ahead and triple cast, get distracted, and you'll get hurt 3 times for a grand total of 65 limit burst crystals to your entire party. Absolutely banana sandwich the things that you can set up with this. This is no one trust. This is just my entire party is going to use their limit bursts, going to set it up, and then everyone's going to use their limit bursts again. What sort of weird stuff you can do with that is actually pretty insane there. So that is going to be yet another thing that you can do with her to just get in there and do a bunch of stuff. Now, the other thing that we're going to talk about here is when you're using her as a damage dealer, she actually does incredible damage, guys, especially with the, you can use as many skills as you want. She gets even bigger burst by using that energy drain. And when you're using 2 Lilisettes as damage dealers, actually, I said you'd probably never use this skill because it was a 2-hit skill and will break any chain, but the way that this skill works here, Viper Bite, and the way that she's an AT chainer, if using 2 Lilisettes who do incredible damage, by the way, she's like number 3 in imagination sheet DPS right now. She's better than Onion Knight, and she loses like Zhuanwu, Xinglong, and like Madame Adele, and then it's Lilisette, this crazy support. And what you do is you can actually chain finish with Viper Bite. So you triple cast, you do her 2 AT chaining skills, which is Dancing Edge, and then you Viper Bite, and you actually get the chain finish on that. And this gets to an insanely high multiplier. It's like a 30-something multiplier. It's actually pretty crazy. It's a crazy mod, because it gets mod boosts from her passives, and it's a 2-hit skill, so those mod boosts are applied to both the first and the second hit, and then both of them are guaranteed crit hits. So you get double chain finish on top of that. So that's number 3 that even makes her even better as a character. So now you have this sort of Elena thing where you have like a support character who does a bunch of damage. A lot of people like Elena for that reason, because she's got those different buffs she puts on your party, which Lilisette can do. Remember, she starts with her own 180% full stat buffs, and then at the start of your next turn, she applies those stat buffs to your entire party. And one small caveat about that, you will see it in the Titan, or the Tiamat fight, not the Titan fight, is that if you are starting a battle where the boss has a preemptive attack, not only is that passive super strong because it's going to make her start with those 180% defense and spirit buffs, which make her a lot tankier, because she just starts the fight. I mean, Tiamat does bite, but she starts the fight with these buffs, guys, and makes her tankier. But on top of that, the preemptive attack starts as and counts as the first turn in the battle. So what happens is you go into the battle with these buffs up, Tiamat takes the first turn, and then you take the second turn, and so the game sees that as you are taking your second turn, or you are taking the second turn in the fight, or you're taking a turn after those buffs are applied, and you actually start with the 180% attack, defense, magic, and spirit buff to your entire party on your first turn without you having to do anything if the boss was taking a preemptive action. Now, speaking more of being in line with this crazy support character, if you're using 2 of these characters as your damage dealer, not only do you get all of the damage, not only do you have the imperils and the breaks and all this other cool stuff, but you can kind of weave in your stuff and take turns between the 2 Lilisettes doing different things. So what do I mean by that? So you can have some pretty long lasting supportive options while you're doing damage, up to like 6 or 7 turns in a row, depending on what you're doing, as long as you're mix and matching your different skills. So for instance, we have Maiden of the Dusk right here. It's a 10-turn cooldown, and it's a very extremely powerful cooldown. It's one of the best skills that she has access to. It removes all debuffs from your entire party, so this counts in perils, breaks, status ailments, stop, charm, berserk, removes them all. It mitigates damage taken, general damage mitigation 40% for 3 turns to your entire party, and gives you a 5,000 HP barrier for 3 turns. So you can have one of your Lilisets use Maiden of the Dusk on turn 1, and then they'll use Trance to, get unlocked the triple cast, etc., etc. And then the other Lilisette will use their own trance, and then they can use something like maybe Thorn Stance, which gives 40% damage mitigation to, or 30% physical damage mitigation, and unlocks the 120% Imperil. Or maybe she'll use trance and she can use her 70% all stat break, and then you do damage for a couple of turns, and then you come back and one of your other Lilisets will put up Maiden of the Dusk and then break at the same time. So you can kind of get in there, sacrifice a little bit of damage, sort of like how Elena can with 2 different Elenas rotating different supportive aspects in their kit, and you're going to be doing a bunch of damage, and for up to 6-7 turns in a row, you're going to have all this mitigation taken care of by strictly your damage dealer, which is very, 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 very crazy, in my opinion. So that's another thing to think about when you're looking at this character. If you are using 2 of her, which you might as well, if you're using her as a damage dealer, she does insanely good damage. She unlocks even more damage when you're using her with a dupe because of Viper Bite, and then on top of that, you can kind of mix and match their mitigation cooldown skills here with Maiden of the Dusk, etc., to do a bunch of cool stuff in there. And then obviously they can also break for up to 6 turns in a row with I'll Beat You Down, or not I'll Beat You Down, but Quick Step, 70%, Attack, Defense, Magic, and Spirit break for 3 turns to all enemies there. So that is something else that she can do there. Now, there's also one other thing that you can do with her, and this is mix and match all these different roles together. And I actually did end up using her, and I have been using her not only as a damage dealer, because not very many people on my friends list actually have Lilisette pulled. Some of them do, and they just kind of have her set up as a bonus unit, haven't really put a lot of thought into her or anything of that nature. I'm part of that problem. I underhyped her, right? I sold her short, sorry. But there's another thing you can do with her, and she becomes very, very, I kind of likened her to Sylvie when we were talking about her in her banner review, and this is because she does a lot of very powerful things, but only temporarily, right? Very powerful, but temporary things. And a lot of people also have this second thing where they're using a support tank to tank for them, right? Support, dodge, draw, attack, provoke, whatever it is, and go ahead and use all of those supportive actions. Lilisette's a very solid candidate for that, and you can do this with no super TMRs. We'll be getting into builds there in a minute for that as well. And I did end up using that for a couple of my trial clears for Tiamat, and we did that on stream as well. And I have an even better build for that now. But all of the stuff that you can do with her, right? She's got temporary, very strong breaks. She has damage mitigation, physical damage mitigation, and perils for your team. All this really good stuff. LB gauge manipulation. She can drop, 15, 30, 45 LB mitigation or LB mitigation, LB gauge crystals into your team there. I'm getting hyped up about this character because she's so strong. And then on top of that, she has access to the physical mitt, and then you can use her as, like I said before, you can heal 30, 60, 90% of your HP plus HP and MP regions on top of that too. So she does a lot of cool stuff. You can use her as a support character, and when she's geared up for this draw attacks sort of thing, she still has access to up to triple cast Absolute Mirror of Equity. So if you want to use chain finisher team comps on top of that, not only can you use her as a tank and as a healer and as an LB gauge, fill rate, LB gauge crystal bot, and trust my whole party basically over and over and over. You can also use chains with her, which is very, very strong, because you can have her chain with someone else that has Absolute Mirror of Equity, and it allows you to fit maybe someone in your party that's a chain finisher, like Sid or whatever. I've been using her a lot with Mastermind Zahn, right, which is very, very strong. She's also very good with Zahn as well because she's got her own imbue. She has her own offensive stat buffs, right? Attack, defense, magic, and spirit. She starts with those. Zahn can take that imbue and those stat buffs, pass it to the whole party. So you can start with imbues on your chain finishers and stat buffs on your chain finishers all at the same time. A lot of times I'll make Mastermind Zahn the tank there because Lilisette does so much more damage than Zahn does. I gear out Lilisette for damage, and so Lilisette's ready to do big damage. Zahn's there tanking and supporting, and I can take those are 2 people filling up my support roles, and I can bring just chain finisher, tank, healer. Done. Double chain finisher team comp with Lilisette doing really good damage, Zahn tanking and supporting and stuff, and before any of those breaks or stuff wear off, by turn 6 or whatever, the fight's over. It's crazy how much damage you can just fit into your team. The Sids have landed, gone, everything's deleted. It's crazy the kind of stuff you can do. Very outside of the box character if you think about her. in that way, guys. So if we go into some of the builds here, we have a lot of different things we can talk about. This is going to be some of our more basic stuff here. We're going to have the dodge build here. Let's get into it right now. No super TMRs of any sort, but this does have some event gear. Obviously, you have the defender. We have the Moogle plushie, catastrophic crown, K-Producer's jacket, Therian scarf, Moogle charm, dodge roll, equip light shield, adamantine, and true spirit of freedom. This gives you 100% dodge, 100% provoke, and with that self buff up, right? Because she does start with 180% all stat buff, and then she puts a 200% on herself. She's gonna have 15,000 HP. Over 1,000 defense and spirit, and she's gonna be your evade dodge character, ready to get in there, ready to roll. No super TMRs. That defender is Dark Knight Leon's TMR there, but a lot of this stuff is pretty easily accessible if you've been playing the game for a while. I think the only 5-star base TMR in this build is actually the defender. Everything else is either lower than 5-star base TMR, or it is a piece of event gear, which is actually really, really insane to get access to a character this powerful with this sort of build here. Now we also have access to something like a damage dealing build, no super TMRs. This is kitted out against Man-Eater. We have Tiger Fangs, Rising Sun, Precious Hairpin, Scarlet Moon, Hermes Sandals ×2, Dance Master, her own TMR there, Man-Eater plus Man-Eater, and then Heartless Assassin, which is Assassin Shadows TMR. She does hit 300% capped Man-Eater there. She's got 3,335 attack with her own self buff up. I think she was like 330% out of the 400% attack capped there. But stacking your Man-Eater max here is in this sort of situation where we're fighting a human boss, going to give you the most damage possible. If you guys don't know the power of killers, I will tell you guys, you definitely need to go and check out Why Attack is a Trap, the video. Explain how strong killer buffs are in there, limit burst damage, all of that good stuff. If you are new to FFB, you need to check that video out. I'll leave that one in the description of the channel here for you guys. Now, we also have this, how strong could Lilisette get, basically? So this is going to be Supreme Sword of Light, Rising Sun, Grand Reverie, Red Hellebore, Moonshade Earring, Limited Moon, Weapon Specials, Executioner, Twin Sword Master, Dark Aspirations, pretty much every super TMR in the game here. She gets up to 3,710 attack, and you know, she does a bit more damage. She does a bit more damage, doesn't really lose any tankiness. Still over 1,000 spirit. Actually has the same exact amount of spirit there. A little bit more defense, a little bit more HP, and you know, about 400 more attack. But outside of that, you know, nothing super insane there. She's still capped on human Man-Eater there. So very, very, very strong stuff there for these sort of builds there. I've been using the dodge tank build quite a lot because of just because there's not a lot of Lilisettes on my friends list. I can't really use her as a damage dealer. There's a lot of people out there, but they're just not set up. They're all like naked and they're flying around the event friend list stuff. So if you guys have Lilisettes, put them down in the friend code down below so you guys can add each other up and all that good stuff. And then we're going to be going over the Tiamat footage like right now. I guess we'll go over it right now if we get it right in there. Get right on in there for you guys. So we're gonna get in here. I'm using Tink, Lilisette. I have Crimson Butterfly and Defender. I actually found a better build than this for me later on. This is the first build we did on stream. We're doing Tiamat. I have Dark Resistance, and my strategy here is actually gonna be pretty interesting. I don't have a lot of fire resist on a lot of my characters, but the way I'm gonna deal with this is I'm just gonna dispel the fire resist, right? I have access to Myra with her limit burst. I have access to all the limit burst gauge crystal stuff with Lilisette to make sure that I have Myra's limit burst whenever I want. Myra has a fire resist buff that is 100%, and also Lilisette herself can remove imperils and breaks and all that good stuff with her cooldown skill there. So we're just going to load in here, and then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the flexibility of Lilisette and Fid and Myra to just kind of fill limit burst gauge crystals, get my breaks off, make sure I can get Sacred Shield Charlotte's limit burst off on turn 1. So I use Beach House Break to fill everyone's limit burst gauge crystals up, and then I entrust with Myra, and then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to break with the Lilisette with Quick Step, and then I'm going to probably either use Thorn Stance or Trance depending on what I want to do here. If I want to have access to some other skills, I'll use Thorn Stance, which I do believe I'm going to, because I'm going to use Thorn Stance to gain access to the 120% Water Imperil. I'm a little tiny guy down here today, by the way, because I'm going to use Liden Fina to water imbue my Shuanglu in Xinglong, and then I'm going to use the Lilisette to get that big 120% water imperil. I already have access to you know, Myra to heal and Liden Fina to heal in this party, so I don't really need triple cast to heal right away on turn 2 here with Lilisette. We're going to get in there, and Lilisette's just going to be, she's provoking and dodging. She's dodging all this stuff. And Sacred Shield Charlotte's going to be taking up all this other damage here. Like I said, I didn't gear my Shuanglu Xinlong for any resist whatsoever, so I just have buffs going up. She's got some spirit, which is pretty cool, and she is in peril. She does have that damage over time thing, and I'm just going to continue on with this. Turn 2, we're going to have Lovely Water. We have our break still up from Lovely Dovely. Lilisette still going in here, so we're going to get in here. We're going to start casting some more stuff. We still have access to Maiden of Dusk when we want to. We're saving that until we cross thresholds. Once we cross that threshold where we get hit by that big fire and peril, that is when I'll use either Myra's Limit Burst or I'll use Lilisette's cooldown skill. I think the thing that I do is I cross the threshold, I will remove the imperil that boss Tiamat sets up with Lilisette, and then I'll actually use Myra's cooldown skill to give myself a big fire resist buff here. And this turn, I'm just kind of like using Lilisette as well to just remove some of these Mirage stacks off the boss and get a little bit more damage in here with the Monk Twins. So we're going to get in here. One of the skills is going to miss, and we're just going to kind of do some solid damage here. We're going to dodge these imbibes, you know. Her little sprite looks a little weird while she's poisoned. We're going to get some damage that goes out. No Mirage in this fight. For us, we don't have a Mirage user, so we're just going to have to deal with it. We're going to take some damage, but the rest of it is going to be pretty easy to take here. So now we're going to go into this fight here on turn 3. I think I'm going to re-break here, probably with Summer Linfina, and then we're going to push the threshold, and we're just going to probably just keep carrying on. I do believe I'm probably just trying to, you know, see what's going on here with this. I'm checking all my, you know, you got to check all your buffs. You got to see what's going on in the world. So we're going to hit them up, take them down to 61%. We're going to use Summer Linfina's Limit Burst, get that 75% all break up, cancel that cutscene. I just want to see the hammer drop. That's all I want to see. The big hammer drop. Looking at the boss's buffs and breaks. He's got one more turn of buffs here. It's going to wear off at the end of his turn. And that's kind of when Tiamat's like not so hard to deal with, is when these buffs are gone. They are undispellable buffs. You can't do anything with them. They're not massive buffs, but he does has attack, defense, magic, and spirit buff all up right away. And that's kind of like, that's what makes him a little bit harder at the start of the fight, because you can't deal with those buffs. So I'm going to cast Thorn Stance, some other stuff in here as well, and just kind of get in here. Hey Samba as well, which is a other skill that you can just cast to get in here and get some stop resist, which we don't really need in this fight, but I'm using it for the ALB gauge crystals. And this fight right here is actually, I didn't even realize at this time that you could triple cast skills that were one use only per turn here. So this is just me thinking that like if I unlock a skill, I can use it one time and then that's it. It wasn't until later that we discovered the big like you can just use her to main heal and all this other stuff. So you can get even better than this. So we're going to get that AoE physical attack. We're going to take some damage there. And Charlotte's going to tanky spanky, eggs and bakey. Boss is going to miasma breath and Eroga. And the wind has died. And then the fire magic is being concentrated. That's the big imperil that we're going to get hit by. So I said, you see that imperil? I don't really care about your imperil. I'm just going to remove it. And I'm going to buff my fire resist this turn, and we're going to deal with it. So we're going to Ternary Flourish here. We're going to, Technique has no blind spots to just re-imperil here for no reason. We're going to use the Maiden cooldown skill. Boom. Make sure that imperil's still up. Good to go. Remove our imperil to our own fire resist while putting our water and ice imperils back on the boss. And I'm going to go here and I'm a main verse. I'm going to use Roaring Crowd. A lot of people use Roaring Crowd for the 30% general mitigation, but it also gives a big holy and fire resistance buff. So we're going to have that access there for us. And then we're going to put up our guard again. And we're not going to use Element Verse because we don't need to. And then we're going to just get in here with some tactical fusions with Fatal Acupoints, the cooldown skill, as well as some debilitating acupoints. We're going to get in here real well and hit this boss up, and we're going to push him through this threshold here. We should do some good stuff. We're just checking to make sure the boss is broken, see that I don't need to use Linfina's big limit burst to break him again for any reason. This was our first, or I think this was our first or second attempt at the boss. I think it was our second attempt at the boss here. And we're just going to go in here. We have our water imperil up. We have our water imbue up. We're going to take the boss down to 29% there, and he's going to go about his business. Imbibe, 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 imbibe. We're dodging. Searing Breath coming in. Resistance, resistance. And he's going to let loose the Hounds of War here with his big fire attack here. Infernal Blast. Infernal Blast. Infernal Blast. Infernal Blast. Infernal Blast. Doesn't matter. We're good to go. And we remember, we didn't gear for fire resist at all. And because we pushed multiple thresholds, it queued him up to do multiple Infernal Blasts. So if you have something like this in your team comp where you have the ability to remove those imperils, you can safely push multiple thresholds. He'll imperil you, and then you just remove it, buff up your fire resistance, and on the next turn, he's just going to hit you with as many of those fire AoE attacks as possible. But if you're already resistant, there's not going to be another imperil to come out before those. He's just going to hit you with all of those, and you're just going to eat them up. You're going to eat them up like early morning eggs and bacon. It's going to be a good time for you guys out there. And we're just going to outro here because he did dispel all of our stuff. So we're going to outro. To get those full stat buffs up, we're going to Thorn Stance and some other cool stuff. We're going to live concert as well, just in case. I didn't know if I was going to live. I don't know if I was going to die. So we're getting in here. Hey, Samba, we're going to chain him up with the Palm Strike. We've saved it till the final burst because the hardest part of any fight, the most dangerous part, is the very end of said fight. And that's what we're going to do here with that. That's going to be Tiamat turn 5. She was a support there, and she was doing pretty great stuff. You know, we were abusing the small parts of her kit that were abusable. She does a lot of cool stuff. We had a lot of other fights that we've done as well. We did like Iron Giant with her, where I used like Mastermind Zahn with her and like a Noctis and like a random friend unit. And we used Zahn to tank while Lilisette did damage, and then Zahn like passed the human killer buffs to everyone else, and then Lilisette had a bunch of damage, and then Zahn and Lilisette chained and then did damage because of Lilisette, and then like the chain finishers finished on it. We just clapped them right on out of there. So this boss has a lot of cool stuff that you can do. This character, Lilisette, is kind of a raid boss. She's got a lot of cool stuff that you can do, and those are the 5 ways for you to abuse her in Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. If you want to see more stuff like this, guys, go ahead, hit me with that like button. So YouTube knows that people want to see this sort of content. That's just how it works out there. It's that YouTube theory. That's all I can say, guys. But thank you guys so much for the support out there. If you want to support us further, check out the Patreon. Check out becoming a YouTube channel member, where I put up a lot of videos early on. You guys out there can get early access to them as well as other rewards. Just a little bit that I can give back to you without kind of locking content behind anything else that's actual content. Nothing's locked behind there permanently or anything of that nature, but that's just something I thought of that I could do for you guys, for giving me a little bit so I can give back to you a little bit as well. So thank you guys for the support. I'm looking forward to seeing your comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, guys.